So I first off want to thank you so much for joining me
Of
in
course.
the next episode of the Birth New Earth podcast. And I call it that because I want everyone to know that we can be empowered to remember that we are manifestors of the reality that we are in. And I see so many folks going around in like a state of fear and anxiety, as we were
Yeah.
talking about before. And I feel like they don't really understand that we together can co-create the kind of world that we want to live in. So one of, I think, the most profound things that you're working on is being able to create the systems that we're already in, right? So the systems of the corporate space, the systems of education, the systems of government, where we feel like we're not really being heard, right? Where we no longer really want kind of like this top-down management because we're shifting into an egalitarian way of being, this kind of society where every single individual needs to be able to stand in their power as a sovereign being and have their voice be heard. And it's so hard to do that because it's such a crowded world, right? Where like the messaging gets lost. We can't really be even sure that what we're hearing is real. And the work that you're doing, I'm going to go right into your bio because it is so highly impressive, is looking to bridge the gap so that we from the bottom up would be able to have that kind of a voice. So welcome, Mustafa. I'm going to hopefully say your name right. El
No, that's
Dahan,
right. Yeah, yeah.
dynamic entrepreneur and CEO of Boulay, which is such an incredible and one of the most important AI power technologies of, I think, our time, which is essentially, as we said before, bridging the communications gap between leaders and their people. So I get like so fired up when I hear about this kind of work that you're doing. And what's most impressive to me is that were you a child? You must have been a child in 2011 during the Egyptian revolution when you saw it
Yeah.
firsthand. Like we have to go into that. That inspired you to build these solutions, to be able to give folks a voice to shape their own future, which is all about co-creating the new earth, which is so in line with what we're talking about, multidisciplinary background in software development, sales, business operations. So what you're doing is you're putting together your tech savvy human insight to be able to take all of those disciplines and position yourself as this leader, right? With both the head and the heart, which is the kind of leadership that we really need going forward. And so your mission, cultivating trust, cohesion between societies and their leaders, one of the most important things that I think that we can talk about now. So
Yeah.
welcome. I'd love to start off with hearing your story, with just being able to know, take us firsthand back to 2011 and what that was like for you.
It was unexpected at the
Yeah.
time. And obviously me watching TV and seeing uh firsthand like people coming down to the streets and asking for simple rights. And to the point where also me and my dad were down in the streets as well. And my dad was like also against like hoses from like water hose from like police, right?
Wait, can you,
And
what does that mean?
so there were police trucks that would hose down people with water because like people who were revolting, right, during
Wow.
the revolution. And it was definitely a crazy moment because I think it triggered in me this thought that the world necessarily isn't fair
Yeah.
as a child. Like
Yeah. And how old
this
were
is when I
you?
first realized. So that was I was about probably like 12, 13.
Wow. And you're
Because
seeing
I came to
that.
Canada in grade 10. I came to Canada
Mm,
in 2012. I was a grade 10.
wow. So this was
Yeah,
walk us through that time. It's it's you at this young age of 12. And what town were you in?
Cairo. So I was living in Cairo.
You were in Cairo.
Yeah.
And so the revolution's happening on the streets. People are taking to the streets. For those that don't understand, what is it that they were having a revolution against?
So they were revolting against the current ruler, like the system, and
Mm,
specifically as well. And it was asking for simple things. Like the main quote was, I'm gonna say in Arabic and then I'm gonna translate it. So uh, حرية وعدالة وعيش, basically. So it means freedom and fairness and
hmm
bread.
mm.
That's what they're asking
Wow,
for,
such
right? And
basic,
it's
basic
basic,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then obviously, like I said, things escalated and escalated, and like police is involved. And then at some point, the army comes in and they
Wow.
de-escalate the situation. And
Wow.
Mubarak at the time steps down. And obviously, at the moment that he stepped down, everybody was crying, you know. But at
Mm,
the same time, I also felt the uncertainty, right? Because
mm.
when you're used to a president for 30 years,
Yeah,
as much as that person could be bad, but for you, it's almost like a father figure,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
and this is one of the main things that I also like I would say included in my mission and to communicate with leaders is that leadership across the world, presidents, queens, kings, whatever it is, they are, or even as a government, right? They are a family figure towards the population, towards their
yeah.
people. They represent somebody who you look up to, and this person or this entity is going to protect me, is going to provide for, well, not provide for me as in like make my life easy when I'm not doing anything, but they're there to take care of me,
Right.
right? This is what a government is at the end of the day. They're here
Yeah,
to make sure
that's
that
what
the
we
country
think.
runs well. Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
That's what we think. That's what we wish for. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, so to take us back to what I was saying, at that point, I definitely felt the uncertainty in the air because you're
Mm,
used to that person for the last 30 years. You
right.
know them, or you at least think you know them in and out. And I know I've even seen people who were a bit like sentimental when he was in prison. People who were also in the streets, but this is pure human emotion, though.
Yes.
And this is
Yes.
normal. Like I
Yeah.
think that's some people would look at those people who would like be upset about it and would say, "Oh, these people are they don't understand, they're traitors or like they're against the revolution." But it's not. It's just the fact that this is pure human emotion and that
Right.
they were for 30 years attached to this government.
Right.
So it's very normal for you to be uncertain about what's about to come your way, right? So after that, I came to Canada in 2012, and since the revolution started, I after that thought that the world is not fair, like leaders are out here being like either robbing their people or acting as a tyrant,
Right.
and how do we fix that,
Right.
right? And
What
I
made
wouldn't.
you and how were you able to leave? Like how did that even
No,
occur?
I came here with my family, and things settled down. Also,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in Egypt, and even right now in Egypt, everything is it's fine. Like it's not like militias or anything. Like people are living normal life. My family's there,
Yeah. Oh, they
right?
are. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but so I came to Canada in 2012 with my family, and I went to that was a great time. But since the revolution, I kept it in my mind of basically thinking of how would we reach a solution, right,
Right.
for cohesiveness. And it's not necessarily even for against leaders, right? Because at the end of the day, none of us are behind those closed doors. No one knows what's happening. No one knows what goes around or who has control of what. And we don't know the pressure that they're under. It must being a leader is a humongous pressure,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because you're
Absolutely.
responsible for millions and millions of lives. So I think that at the time I kept thinking that the solution would be something that would connect both, but I didn't necessarily know exactly how I would go about it.
Right, right. I remember you
And
had said about like this whole like, your true concept of democracy and when you learned about that and how you wanted to recreate that.
yeah, and I think just talking about democracy, I think that the biggest thing is that us as humans, we cannot say that there's just one democracy that fits all. Like that doesn't
Right.
exist, right?
Right. No, it doesn't.
And yeah, and the democracy that works in the US is not going to work in France. It's not going to work in Egypt. It's not going to work in Libya, right? It's not going to work in China because everybody has different cultures. Everybody believes in something different. But that doesn't mean that we're going to be enemies. It doesn't mean that we're different from each other, as in like these people don't believe in us and we're against each other. No, it doesn't mean that. We can definitely live in cohesiveness, even if it's different nationalities, different religions, different beliefs, different identities,
Right. Right.
whatever it is.
Right. I totally agree with that. And
Yeah.
it's like this concept of democracy, which is really just, you know, steeped in harmony, equity, unity, right? To be able to replicate that model, but based on the region, I think is kind of like what your technology would be about, because there's no reason why everyone can't have, their culture's idea of what democracy was always meant to be.
Mhm. And the way I look at what we're building at Bula as well is not, I wouldn't necessarily that would say that we would fix like everybody's democracy, right? I'm building is a tool for you to be able to reach
Mm,
that democracy, right?
hmm.
It's to be able to connect with your people as a leader, right?
Yes.
Whether you are in a government or you're in a university or any kind of entity that is public facing. And that's the beauty about Bula as a platform is that it serves many sectors. It's sector agnostic, basically. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing in any decision is the decision-making process itself.
Yes.
And are you taking in consideration the subject matter experts? Are you taking in consideration the people that are going to be affected by your decision? Is their input heard? Because at the end of the day, you can take a decision and then you've spent these resources and you're still not getting the outcome that you want. And why is that? Even if you've done market research, is because you haven't asked the right questions, you haven't asked the right people, you haven't reached out to the people that actually matter and they have a say in what's about to happen. So I think the Bulai gives the space for that and it enriches the trust between both parties as a leader and your people.
That's exactly the concept that is needed, because I mean I know in the prep call we even talked about like how corporate is still shaped where they could bring in like $1 million consultancy deal. And, these are folks from the outside that are coming in to advise on the way that a company should be working, when they haven't even bothered to have a conversation with anyone from the bottom on up, who are the folks that really, are interfacing with the clients, that actually have their finger on the pulse of the market, that are, like out in the market, that are being told no, or figuring out the verbiage that works and doesn't. And like to the point where, it does a disservice to the company. And I think that happens on an ongoing basis. And I think it's a symptom of, and I know we talked about this too, us kind of like where we are in like humanity's cycle, because we have needed a top-down structure to create the world, right? Like
Mhm.
that was necessary across like all these different systems, religion, school, corporate, government, and it worked up into a point where now it doesn't work anymore. Like, can you talk about like, do you feel like we're at a stopping point there?
I think we're definitely at a pivotal point in
Yeah.
terms of societies as well as because of the technology that is being involved, right? Especially with the rise of AI.
Hmm.
And we as humans also reached a point where information is very accessible, right? But back in the day, people used to go to war just for knowledge. And we talked about this as well, right?
Yeah.
Last call. And now you can just go on the internet and search anything and you're going to find information. You're going to find Reddit posts, you're going to find maybe a Wikipedia, you're going to find a web page about what you're talking about. There's going to be different sources and
Oh,
they might
yeah.
say different things.
Yeah.
And just connecting that to what you were just talking about, in terms of this being a pivotal point for humanity in general, I think this is, yes, a changing point for
Yeah.
all countries
Yeah.
because even even if all governments are systematic, right, and they're pushing us in t some type of, you would say, agenda, right, pushing all populations. With the current technologies and the current access to information, it's not necessarily sustainable enough,
Right. Right.
right, to be suppressing information because people are continuously going to be questioning, right? You're not going to have millions of years of people just sitting on TikTok watching other people dance. At some point,
Right.
one person is going to stand up and
I'm
say,
glad you
well,
finally said that.
yeah, well, actually, let's just stop this video for a second. Like, how
Yeah.
about what's happening over there? You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
somebody
Yes.
will stand up and say something at some
Yes.
point.
I feel like I'm that person. Like,
Well,
I'll be the
you're not
person.
alone, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the point of like bringing these conversations together because we can't just stay heads down anymore, and not really question what's going on in the world and just
Mhm.
be okay with whatever it is that we're being fed. We have to start actually questioning everything. And I feel like that's, what you're working on. If we can bring transparency from the ground up and culturalize that as a norm. I don't even know if that's a word, but I like it as a word. We keep saying it.
Big words,
Yeah,
yes.
and we keep saying it. That's the shift that we need because it's the people that really are the ones that, are so lost. And they really need a roadmap and they need to be able to access their resources and they need to be able to feel free and they need to, to get bread. Like they need all the simple things that, your dad was chanting for,
For sure.
and all of those things are readily available. But I think that the communication gap where we start to believe, oh, we don't have enough resources,
Yeah.
or, those people are taking it away from us. Like I think that's where we end up, in a state of war. That's where we start having enemies like that. Like enemies are just people that were told, oh, wow.
That's, yeah, welcome to the new age of technology. Yeah.
That happens sometimes. I never got that one. But like for me, like I feel like the most like solid communication gap is that we forgot we're all human and that we forgot that the people that were told are enemies are also human who just received other information about us.
It's 100%. I completely agree. And it honestly, for me, it's even crazier. Like I think it's very crazy how calm people are when there's wars are happening around like other in other continents, right? And if you go
You
back in
need
time,
confetti. You should have confetti for that statement.
even if you go back in time and like World War II, even in the start when there wasn't
Yeah,
many countries involved, there was still like anxiousness in the streets all over the world because yeah, they heard it on radio. They don't even have, imagine they had the same technology where you can
right.
see videos from the war in Ukraine, like straight videos. It's not a joke, right? So which is crazy. And of course there are people who are expressing their emotions, but if you're talking about majority of people, everybody's waking up, going to work, coming back and trying to put food on the table, and you can't blame them
Yeah.
because this is how our societies have become.
Yes.
You just go
Yes.
run for your bread, come back, make sure you get a good sleep because tomorrow is gonna be the same thing.
You're gonna do it again, all over again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quote unquote a rat race, right?
Yes. Yes.
So at the end of the day, Bulai as a platform, I think I wouldn't also frame it as, I'm not saying that you are, but just in the case of anybody's hearing that. And I wouldn't necessarily frame it as a tool to like punish leaders or something. I think
Oh
this
yeah, no.
actually, yeah.
No.
No, no, I think if anything, Bula is a platform that can empower leaders
Yeah.
more in a
Yeah.
righteous way.
Yes.
In a
That's
in a
beautiful.
righteous way, as in you no longer have to worry about sitting down reading emails from 1,000 people because you don't
Right.
have time for that. right?
Right.
But with our platform, they will be able to communicate with you, and you will be able to propose discussions or bills or any type of question that you have for any locality or the whole country if you would like, right? And from there, everything else happens automatically on the platform, but it keeps you
Amazing.
in tune. It keeps you in tune with your society. You no
Yes.
longer have to hear some analyst or somebody come into you telling you that, hey, California is not happy. But okay, sure. Like, is Calif all of them are not ha why are they not happy?
Right.
What is really the issue in California? And I'm
Right.
saying this is a hypothetical, but what is really the root cause? Have
Yeah.
you talked to the people on the street? Did you just talk to 500, 1,000 people? Is that enough? Does that get you a good picture of what's happening? I don't think so. And
No.
and the biggest thing that we follow in Bula is that you cannot impact what you can't measure.
Right. Right.
It's as simple as that.
Right. It is that simple, and yet it's not being done. You just have like your representative who you would hope
Yeah.
would be speaking on your behalf. And who knows, maybe they have their own ideas, their own agendas. I mean, we're all just human at the end of the day. But if we could all have a microphone, then we would be able to create this kind of shift in such a more streamlined fashion. So I
Mhm.
love that you said that it empowers existing leaders, and I think it's really important. Like, how does it work specifically, the tech?
The platform is basically a discussion platform, discussion
Mm,
board platform where
mm,
leaders would post discussions or questions, in other
right.
words, or proposals, whatever they are. And the participants would be their constituents. So
Mm,
the if it's a public facing company, if they have if they have any or not, let's not say company, let's say it's a public facing sector in the government,
mm,
they have their constituents as in any locality. If they have their contact information or whatnot, they would be receiving an invite to participate. And basically, the participants will go in and write their comment. There's no limits, so you can express how you really feel.
mm,
And once they comment it, it goes in our backend system where it's analyzed through AI, and AI is capable of labeling them as positive, negative, or neutral sentiment.
mm, mm,
And we do a bunch of other analytics. I'm not going to get too deep into the exact analytics, but we're able to give the leaders a very good insight on what is the root problem or what is the majority sentiment and what
right,
do they want,
right.
right? From analyzing every person's comment.
Wow. From actual
Yeah, from
people.
their words, right? It's
Yeah.
not, it's no longer 1 to 5. It's no
Amazing.
longer rate me from 1 to 5. Are you satisfied or
Wow.
are you happy or
Right.
not? These
Yeah,
numbers don't represent
I
anything.
don't know anything like that. Like I mean, I'm in New York. I'm a fan of Mayor Eric Adams. He has something where it seems like he's texting you, but it's all just, it's just formed fields and things. Like it's he doesn't know me. He doesn't know what I need. He doesn't know what my issues are. He doesn't know what life is like here on, the southernmost tip of Staten Island, and I know
Yeah.
that because there's nothing that actually supports that. And we're like all okay with that until I feel like most of us at this point are just not. M Most of us at this point are really ready to start being almost like our own internal government, but we need the mouthpiece to work with who's already at the top. And
Mhm.
and so what, like, can you give me an example? Like, what would be like if someone wanted to like propose a project or something? Like, if I wanted to do, and I'm just gonna like make something up, but here's something I do really want to do. Like, I feel like we should be doing community indoor hydroponic farms so that we could have like GMO organic food that is local all year round. Like, that's my dream. I don't know why we don't all have this, right? I want to make one on the island. Would that technology be able to support this? Like, what would I do?
So you would go on as a leader, right? Let's
Mm.
say you're a leader in your locality.
In my locality, yeah.
And yeah,
Which of
and
course I
you would,
am. I'm
yeah,
famous. Yeah.
of
So,
course.
right?
Everybody
Famous
knows,
people
yeah,
don't say that, right?
exactly. So you would write down, here's what I think. Let's say
Mm,
we have a budget that would allow us to do X project that you just talked
mm,
about, right? We
mm.
can now grow food in our own homes. This is how it's gonna work. And then
Yeah.
you can also attach documents to support what you're talking about, to
Mm.
prove to people that this works, showing them how the technology would work, showing them when will it grow, how long it
Right.
will take, how long will it take for us to set up the machine or the content, like whatever we need in your house. And that's it. And then you post it. You can set the duration of the discussion to, let's say you can have it for a week or however long you want it,
Right.
and people would come in and say what they think. Once
People in the
they,
community, in the local
yeah,
community.
in
Okay.
your locality, yeah.
That's amazing.
And then once the duration is done, you will be presented with the analytics of what's
Mm,
happened, of
mm.
how people feel about it.
Oh, wow.
So it will show you the
Wow.
sentiment. It will show you a heat mapping model of
Wow.
where do all the comments fall, as in terms of like category, in terms of
Right.
sentiment, in terms of confidence. And we can provide more and more, of course, for the leader. And the whole point here is that we collect all this information, and at the end, we give the leaders a suggested solution.
Wow.
So from, let's say, 1,000 people in your locality, they comment, and we figure out how they feel. We get the sentiment data. We get all the data that we collect. We then are able to tell you, okay, people are expressing positive sentiment and are choosing to go forward with this project. Here's how you should go about it. You should do phase one, phase two, phase three. So we even go into like phasing out the development
Wow.
plan for your solution.
Wow. A suggested like project plan.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. So you're like really an advocate for the people,
It's and the leaders as well. We're
right?
advocate of the society as a whole,
Right, right.
right?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and because at the end of the day, just like I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
leaders do have the hardest job
Right.
because they take care of like everybody in the country, right? At the
Mm,
end of the day, but they don't necessarily have the right tools to be able to connect with every single one of us.
right.
But this is the tool that's going to bridge that gap,
Right. That's
right?
amazing.
And also in the suggested solution, we include a fairness consideration. So
Mm,
that would include the 20% of people that voted against, or not voted, I meant like commented against your proposed
right.
project.
Right. This is
So yeah,
amazing. Yeah, I feel
yeah.
like we need to have this everywhere. I mean,
Hopefully, that's the
really.
goal. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the goal with Bula is to definitely be a global solution, not just
Yeah.
for Canada or the US or even North America. My aim is to go global for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, it seems like one of those technologies where you're like, why didn't I think of that? And then when, like once you hear about it, you're like, it makes so much sense. Like it really, and so like, do you then take this into the school system? Do you take this into the corporate world? Is this like a, multi kind of tiered project?
So this is applicable everywhere, and it obviously works at scale. So in terms of companies who have like 10 employees, they everybody knows each other, right? You
Yeah.
don't need apply, you don't need teams even. Like you can
Yeah.
text each
Yeah. Yeah.
other,
Yeah.
right? But if you're a company that like global company and you have thousands and thousands of employees, of course. If you're a public facing entity as a government branch, of course you need something like that to be able to communicate with the right people. If you're a
Yes.
university, exact same thing. If you're an NGO, all these are applicable.
Any hierarchy, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like where I see like it kind of goes really in line with the podcast itself because I always feel like we're looking at so many different systems that seem as though they're cracking and crumbling and like they're dissolving. And I think that, that's where the fear comes from. Like people
Yeah.
don't really, oh, there got the thumbs up. That's really
Yeah.
funny. It's the universe's thumb. And I think that's where the fear and the uncertainty comes in for people because
Mhm.
no one really knows a new way forward and they feel like the status quo of the old traditional hierarchy can no longer work, but they don't really understand how can we actually move forward now. And I feel like what you're talking about is a really important way forward. Like even if you just like look at like just the school system in and of itself, right? I know we talked about whether or not corporate is going to be hiring for knowledge anymore. We talked about that a lot in the prep call, just because everything's readily available, in AI now, and what would the new skills be, if it's not going to be as much about the info that as it's how you use it, or what kind of like innovative ideas you have, or how you collaborate, um, how you create, creativity. Like I feel like we're going to start to see like a shift in valued skill sets within corporate, which I understand. So I think that means we need a shift in the way that we teach our children. And you had mentioned something that I thought was so spot on that it's like I forgot about it when you brought it back up again. I was like, yes, why don't we all talk about the importance of the Socratic teaching method, right? Like where we are actually expanding on what's inside the child, and instead of saying this is what you need to be taught, and I almost feel like your technology backs that because here we are, empowering from the ground up. Here's what I want to learn. Here's what makes me the most expansive, imaginative person that could align with AI.
I know, I completely agree. And even just to touch on the point where you're talking about old traditional ways, right? And this is actually where the name of Bulai is derived
Mm,
from. So
mm,
Bulai comes from Bul, and Bul is basically a council. And this is back
mm,
in ancient Athens. And they would every city would have its own council or Bul, right? And the leaders of the council would be chosen through a lottery system, and they would be given a year to basically take care of the city, and they would be held responsible at the end of that year. And that same way that you're talking about in terms of teaching kids,
yeah.
where they sit down in almost like a council way and they talk with their elders or their teachers and thinking about the world and how was the world created and how do you have a good society and how do you have a good family, how do you
Mm,
build things, and teaching
mm,
them real values. This is 100% the way that we should go
yeah.
about things,
Yeah.
right? So, and this is where I hope Wulai is going to take us.
Yeah, I definitely I know that we at the school level have to start creating that shift and actually like start asking kids, what do you love? Like
Mhm.
which is like something because like I used to teach workshops in positive psychology and we would get to like the middle of maybe it was like a 6 week course. So like in the middle of the course, I'd be like, all right, now that we all really know each other and like we're transcending like some of like our blocks and things, what do you guys love to do that you stopped doing, when maybe you were a kid, because so many folks said yes to roles that they really never wanted to take on because I think we have been so much just telling our children what they're supposed to be.
Of course.
As opposed to just
Yes.
asking them. And it would take them like a week or two to like come back and be like, oh, I remember, I used to love to write, I used to love to sing or make music or some people just like to spot where there's holes in the market. Like there's so much inside of us that I think the kind of traditional school system doesn't really allow us to cultivate and like it feels like when we move into this new system which is bottom up it has to start with the kids.
100%. I
Yeah.
completely agree. And this is one of the main things that we wanted to touch on as Bula is that we
Mm.
want to bring in this system into schools so that children are brought up knowing how society should be run. You have the absolute right to voice your opinion in anything that will have an effect on you or
Yeah.
anything that will have
Wow.
an effect on your country. And I think in a bigger idea and in a bigger value,
Yeah.
it's the fact that you should love your country.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah.
love your hometown, right?
Yes.
I think that something that's spreading now is I don't think that people kind of care about their countries anymore.
Right.
At least, and I'm not
Right.
saying this about all the countries. For sure, there's people like even in Egypt or in anywhere else, they love their countries. But I would say that I've kind of noticed that here in maybe in North America or the Western societies. So, and I think that that's the root cause or that's the root problem.
I
Like you have to
100%
love
agree.
your country and care
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
and your society in general.
It's like instead of being put, into a system early on. I remember my older son had said, when he started school that he remembered having an imagination. And then it was like almost trained out of him by the time he got into high school. Like he doesn't even remember, that true intuition, that essence of the creator that we all are. And I think if we're doing that, we set the kids up like automatically to like not be happy about where they are. Like they're right
For sure,
away,
yeah.
they right away start to almost build resentment. And then they are going into roles. I mean, I know like my generation on back, like most of the time said yes when they should have said no to roles because they just went right from school into that, from that training of like, we say yes even when we don't like it. And I think that proliferates resentment, specifically, as you said, in the Western culture, towards the world and maybe just themselves because they're not living their truth. They haven't been able to communicate their truth. And, that I think that's where we're seeing a lot of pain. I think that's where the humanity at a tipping point it is like up to like why that's happening now because I think everyone really is craving to live their truth and speak it.
100%. And I think a couple points here is what you just said. Truth is a hot commodity now, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And the second thing is I'm gonna go back on the point that I said, and I want to say all of the Western societies because you can
Mm,
see even in the U.S., like you can see in different states how much how deep connected they are to their country.
mm.
You
Oh
can
yeah,
see
yeah,
the
you
differences from
do.
one state to another,
Yeah, you do see
and
that. Yes.
and even when we come down to talk about children and in school and creativity, I completely agree. Obviously, as the society around us also shapes our children.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not just the schools. For sure, the schools have a role as well as the societies, but societies are also following the system that they're guided through.
Right.
And as you grow generations and generations into the same system, the society is also kind of strayed away from the right path.
Right. Right.
So you have the child then kind of in between two faulty systems, right?
Yes.
And this is something
Yes.
that we talked about on our last call. There's two
Yeah.
things that haven't changed,
Yeah.
and it's our education system and our political system.
Right.
Everything else around us
Right.
have become more advanced and advanced.
Right.
So
Right.
why are we halted here?
Right.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
and I feel like, people just don't think that we can, have a solution with a way forward, so that's why like I'm so appreciative of you just coming on to explain, well, here's one way that we can have a solution with a way forward. And, back to your point of, like folks in America that do love America, we have that everywhere. But I will say that I think it is at the expense of hating other people outside of the country. That's,
Sure,
I
and
think
I think,
that's what we see.
but I think that at the end of the day, this is also the government's role,
Yeah.
right? This is the
Yes.
government's role to
Yes.
guide you to be like, okay, well, all right, if the government comes out and labels some external people as these are the bad people. So what do you expect?
Right. That's what
And
happened. That's
especially
what's happening.
imagine especially
Yeah.
when that country that you're labeling as bad people, you have people immigrating to your country
Yeah.
as the
That
US
that is
from that
exactly
country. So what are
what's
you
happening.
expecting? You know
That's
what I
what's
mean? And
happening.
another thing that
Yeah.
we had mentioned the previous call was that this whole like wave about immigration and people being against it. Well, at the end of the day, like me myself, I'm an immigrant. I came to
Right.
Canada as an immigrant, right?
Yep.
And I completely understand the point of Canada or the US or any other country wanting to help, right? But do you have the infrastructure? Because when you don't have the infrastructure, have you planned for it
Right.
properly? Did
Right.
you ask the right people? Did you ask the
Right.
people that are going to be affected by bringing on hundreds of thousands of immigrants? Right?
Right.
And I'm not, and it's nothing against these immigrants. It's
Yeah.
actually the
No,
government's role.
it's so true. Yeah.
You have to make a proper plan to be able to provide house. Are you going to be able to educate these people? Are you going to be expecting them to change their culture to match yours? And how's that going to work? Is that even feasible, right? All of this has to be in account. And then when, you know, stuff hits the fan, and then you go out and you have leaders in your society saying, "Oh no, we should not be bringing these people in because they're ruining us." It's not really the case. It's just that you haven't done the proper planning and you haven't done the and then people are kind of astonished that the normal public is against it as well. Well, of
Right.
course, because
Of
they see
course.
their leaders
Yes.
against them, so
Yes.
obviously they're good. So it's just a cycle.
It
It's just
is
a
a
cycle,
cycle.
yeah.
It is an ongoing cycle. And I see it everywhere, especially where I live on Staten Island, and people are up in arms. And I 100% agree with you that it just hasn't received the proper planning because the country in and of itself is built on immigrants. So like to hear, like that's what's
Exactly.
so crazy,
A
like
hundred
about
percent.
the whole thing, and it's funny because I took a bus trip yesterday with my parents and ARP. I don't know if you know AARP. It's hysterical that I do this with them like every year. Everyone's like 75 and up. And then there's me. And we see a show in Pennsylvania, like a Christmas
Yeah.
show, and we have lunch at
Oh,
like
that's
11:30
adorable.
in the
Yeah.
morning. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
That's amazing. That's cute.
It is like they're the best people, except on this topic. I will tell you, like they are all so angry about this topic. And we literally talked about this yesterday, and I said exactly what you said, that it's just a symptom of it not being set up properly. And you know, I feel like your technology works to solve this kind of a thing because the resources are available, but do we know where they are and how do we set it up that makes it easier for local government and leadership to step in and so everyone can become empowered because and I know this is another thing we talked about, like we're all one, and when we say no to another human and say, no, you can't have your freedom or your bread, it actually hurts us because that's not really
Of
who we
course.
truly are. Like endemically, like as a human being, when I say America's a great country, like, and that means, you're not allowed in because you're from Mexico, like what I'm doing is I'm creating segregation and no country or religion was really meant to be about that. Like none of them were. And like I loved what you started to go into the Quran because I wasn't familiar with it. And with like I don't even, believe in segregation of all religions because my thought is that all religions come from the same place,
So
all
yeah,
all
it's
based
very
in, love and
yeah.
passion and unity. We just have different books for it. We just
Hmm.
have, different human beings that we envision, whether it be Buddha, Jesus, Krishna. Like when I start to speak this way, like every person agrees because no one loves hating people. Like I don't think people do. Like I think
No,
they
a
just
hundred
think they're
percent, and
supposed
it's
to.
even it's actually it's funny that you mentioned that because last night I don't know if you've watched this movie, but there's a movie on Netflix called Mary, and it
Oh
talks
no, I'm gonna
about
watch it now. That'd be next.
yeah, it's talking about Virgin Mary
Yeah,
and
yeah.
talks about the story up until the birth of Jesus.
Hmm.
And when I talked about the Quran and you saying that religions, we treat religions as segmented,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
talking actually to I was talking about this last night with like my friends. And in my opinion, and this is my humble opinion, and this is my thought, right? This is my
Yeah.
hypothesis, is that
Yeah.
I think that they're all the same religion, right?
Yes.
If we're
Yes.
talking, if even if we're especially if we're talking about,
So true.
Islam or
Yeah.
Judaism or
Yeah.
Christianity, we are all praying for the same God. Like
Yes. Yes.
this is something that people need to like really comprehend,
Yes.
because because why is it that we kind of see each other as enemies? Like,
Right.
we're
Right.
literally praying for, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I understand it because each, like I would say, players that be wanna be convinced that they're the ones who are right. It's our way
Mm.
that is right,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, as a Muslim, right, or I still believe that I'm praying for the same God
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
that
you
my friend
froze. You
who's
froze for
like
a
my best friend
second.
is Christian. He was the same God. Oh no. So I was saying, me as a Muslim, I know that I believe in the same God
Yeah.
as my best friend who's Christian, and I have friends who are Jewish as well, and I know that we're all praying for the same God, and I have no, in any shape or form, any kind of resentment or any kind of, do I look at them in a different way at all? But like whether if it's Jewish, Christian, or comes from a different country, whether it's like Saudi, France, the US, I don't care. For me, like I don't necessarily care at all. It's all about, are you a good human being?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you a good human being? And obviously, like being on your religion and doing your prayers and whatnot, it just elevates you, right? If whether
Exactly.
it be that you believe
Exactly.
that you should pray just like, performing the act of prayer like Muslims, or if you sit down and pray to God and just like talk to God, I respect whatever it is, right? And just like I said, at the end of the day, if you're a decent human being, for me, I don't care. That's what matters.
It's that simple. Like
Yeah.
it's like if every single person, and I know people are catching on to this mindset, which is such a simple mindset, but if we can get enough people to just think and feel that way, we create a new earth. One that is
For
rooted in
sure.
harmony and peace.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean
Rebirth a new earth.
it's
That's what
yeah,
it
we
is.
birthed, that's the point. I see myself
Yeah.
pregnant when I say
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Which I'm so glad I'm not pregnant anymore. And if we remember this, right, like we had said before, that we
Yeah.
came from the same place, we're going back to the same place,
Yeah.
and like it's such again, a simple concept that like we are born knowing unity.
Everything around you points towards collaboration. Even
Yes,
economically.
yes, yes,
Economically, it's proven that
yes,
collaboration will always yield better results.
yes, yes.
So it just comes down to a point where unfortunately you will always have bad players. Always. That's
Mm,
just how the
mm.
world is, right? Because otherwise, why are we living in it, right? If there's no evil and there's no good, then there's no point of us existing to
Yeah.
begin with.
This brings
And
us like back to the original call of like why, why we chose to come here and the things that we want to
yeah,
transcend in the game that we play. I'm
for
sorry to
sure.
interrupt.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
completely agree. And the whole point is that us as humans, our mission is to continuously strive towards the perfection,
Yes.
right? Just like, you know, in Christianity, right, we talk about how God created us in his image. And this is what we want to go towards, right?
Yeah.
God is fair, God
Yeah.
is righteous, God is good, right? And this is even, let's say, even if you don't believe in God, right? How do you want to be as a human being?
Right.
You want to be a good human being. You want to be
Right.
righteous. You want to make sure that you're fair to everyone around you. You want to make sure that you help your society. That way, when you're on your deathbed, even if you don't believe in an here and after, or you don't believe in anything else, you're gonna be sitting down. You're gonna be thinking about, what have I done in my life? Am
Yes.
I am I ready to go?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That's what everyone wants. And like we see, children coming into this world knowing about unity, feeling into unity, and then, receiving information based upon where they're growing up, where they forget about it. And then we could see us at the end of our life, wishing that we would have known about it the entire time, like that which lives inside of all of us. And like, even
Mhm.
if you aren't comfortable with the word, God or Allah or like whatever, like any of these things,
Yeah.
like the first person I ever interviewed for this, is an atheist, and Julie, she was like, but I know there's an energy, there is, the universe, there is synchronicities, there is, when we are in this energy, our ability to be powerful, like our ability to collaborate, our ability to draw on resources from other countries and other people to be able to come together and say,
Mhm.
this feels better than murder.
100%.
I like this better
Of
than murder.
course.
And I've been doing murder for centuries. We've all been saying yes when we want to say no to that kind of thing. It's been getting us the same results over and over again. So now we need like a new way of being, but like it has to be okay that we start thinking and feeling the way that you were just talking about before. Like that has to start to be a norm where, we don't think that we need to be on a certain land to feel this way, because it's just in us. It's already as we are. We are in the image, and some will say we are just versions of God. And we are an
Mhm.
aspect of the divine, that is animated in this human form. And I love that the most, because then that reminds me that all of that energy that's in me is in you.
Exactly. Exactly. And I know that in any religion you are instructed to be good to your society. This is
Yeah.
this is like
Right.
the
Basic.
it's basic
Basic.
commandments.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
no religion that tells you, hey, go like
Right.
hate your neighbor.
Right.
Nobody
Right.
says that, right?
Right.
And it just like I was saying, you will have bad players. You're gonna have countries, or you're gonna have presidents or kings or queens, whatever it is gonna be, that are gonna want just good for themselves,
Yeah.
or benefit for themselves over
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah.
And and it's not just, it doesn't just fall to that. It also falls to societies. And
Yes.
I think that every single person has the responsibility to think for themselves
Yes.
and be able, if even just hypothetical, right? Hypothetical example. If you're living in a country where your leaders have brought immigrants, just to take us back to that same example that we were talking about, and you're feeling now like you're against immigrants, right?
Mhm.
You should, you are responsible for yourself to be able to go research and understand what the problem is. Why did these people come here to
Right.
begin with?
Right.
And
Yes.
do we as a nation have the capability to be able to handle that immigration,
Right.
right? And it's not these people's fault. These people
Right.
could be coming from a war-torn country. These people could be
Right.
coming from a tyrant who's destroying their lives. These people could be coming from anything, right? From famine, whatever it is. You don't know. And unfortunately, it's because we are all like stuck in our day-to-day
Right.
cycle. We don't
Yeah.
have the time to spare to go and
Right.
research the
We're too
topic, or
busy. We're too busy dancing on TikTok.
well,
That's
and
what
by
we're
the way,
doing.
this is not everybody. Yeah, I'm not gonna even say that over everybody's not. It might
Yeah.
not be TikTok. It might be
Yeah.
anything else,
Something
right? Or
else.
you
Something
would,
else.
or
Yeah.
somebody would be like, I don't want to spend that time. I'd rather like researching. I'd rather go out with my friends and hang out at
Right.
a bar or
Right.
whatsoever.
But this
Sure,
is this
fantastic.
is the issue. Like, if we want to live in a participatory society where we feel empowered, we can't just complain anymore. We have to actually become
Exactly. You have to be
empowered to
responsible.
be solution oriented. And that's what feels the best. Right. When we start having these kinds of conversations, we already start shifting the world. You know, the energy starts to shift, like you start meeting the right people. And and that that leads me to like my next question about you, which is so impressive because you went from seeing some really traumatic things, your dad being hosed in Egypt, like these things that happen, like the fall of like, it seems like a government where like even though it was a difficult, figure, it was a father figure, like those things are traumatic and into coming here, having this ideology, birthing this kind of a product, and then
Mhm.
bringing it up to leaders yourself, like there's no shortage of courage from, kind of flowing from you. The names of the folks, like I don't want to start name dropping, but like the names of the folks that you have gotten yourself in front of with this kind of product at a super young age is highly impressive. And I feel like that's what we need most because like even if we remember what we love to do, most of us are just even just afraid to even do it. How do you do it? How do you cultivate your courage? Where did it come from?
I I think it's a very long process. I think,
Hmm. Don't
and
say
I wouldn't
that.
necessarily. No, no,
No, I'm kidding. I'm
it's.
kidding. It took
You should
37
just say
years,
it's
Scott.
easy. No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no. I think if anything, if it was easy, then everybody would be
yeah,
like everybody would be
yeah.
responsible. And I'm not saying that I have the courage of like, Hercules. It's not the case. I think it's the drive of wanting to actually have a change. Like, for
Yes.
example, if me as an entrepreneur, like I take a look around the world we're living in right now, most of the business, like VCs who support businesses, they're mostly looking for like a 2-year return, 3-year
Mm,
return.
hmm.
Maximum, if they like really love you, they'll give you like 4
And
years or
right,
something like that,
right.
right?
Yeah, at
And
most.
this is not an ecosystem that helps a company that is looking for a long-term solution or long-term
Hmm.
effect,
Hmm.
right, to help societies. This is more of something where a company can flip a product and make revenue and just
Hmm.
exit, go
Hmm.
on to the next product,
Hmm.
exit. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And for sure, obviously there are other, outliers who do something that benefits society, but the system itself isn't made to incubate that type of change.
Right.
Right? It's not made to
Right.
incubate the a company that's gonna make a change in society, because investors are not interested in
Right.
in something that's gonna is that a company is going for like 10 years, 100 years, right?
Right.
Or 50
Right.
years, something like that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the reason why I wanted to go for it is obviously because I love my country.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest reasons. And the first reason that I mentioned about the system is just, does the system encourage people to do that?
Right.
And do you have that connection towards your country, towards your people, towards your society, where you are encouraged to make a change?
Right.
And I think above all, what I really been feeling was that I owe it to the people that don't have the resources to
Mm.
do it.
Hmm. That's
I
beautiful.
yeah.
No, that really is. That's what we need. That's the kind of leadership that we need. People who are standing up and saying, I've seen what it's like to not have anything and I want to help.
Yeah, and it's not. I'm not saying that I came from like from the worst of the worst. No, like thankfully, like thank God, I've had like a good life, like
Yeah.
so far,
Yeah.
right? But I
But
think
you've
if
seen what
anything,
it's like
yeah,
for
of
people
course,
to
I've
not
seen.
have.
No,
Yeah,
I
you've
was in the
seen.
streets, like I
Yeah.
told you, like I was on the streets. There were at a time there was basically no government,
Mm.
where it was just like people in the street, and like we would
Wow.
have our own blockades, people with their own guns down in the street
Wow.
having their own blockades to like make sure that the prisoners who left prison don't come and rob them, right?
Wow.
People would die on the street, people would die in Tahrir
Wow.
Square. And I understand that, and I see everything around me now. Like
Mm.
I see Sudan, I see
Right.
everywhere where there's revolutions and uprisings, and I understand, I
Yeah.
get it, right? and
I
and
think
it
we're going to
doesn't
have a lot more of them.
Oh, For
Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
it's gonna be a continuous thing as long as people are not
Yeah.
heard. And I
Yeah.
think it doesn't have to be that you come from the rags. You don't have to come from the bottom of the bottom to
Yeah.
understand what it is,
Yeah.
right? I think it is your responsibility
Yeah.
towards yourself, your society, your country, the world that you live in, to understand the problems around you
Absolutely.
and to
Yeah.
try at the very least to propose a solution. And by the way, something that I've mentioned and even that I believe about Bulai is yes, I am trying to help and I'm providing a solution, but I know that this is just a step
Yeah.
towards betterment of society.
Right.
But what I'm
Right.
providing is the space and the medium to find the genius in our
Right.
societies.
Yes.
Because you engaging with your community, you can find that one or two geniuses who are going to propose the right idea. And it's a numbers game if you think about it. The more people that you talk to, the higher probability that you're going to find somebody who's genius and who's going to solve the problem.
I love that. I love that. Yes. Yes. And give the genius a microphone. I love that. Yeah.
For sure, yeah,
It's amazing. I'm so excited to see what happens next. And I would
for
love to
sure.
know, this is kind of like the final question that I give everyone is how do you envision the new Earth? What does it look like to you?
A new Earth, a new Earth would be where all societies are in harmony.
Mhm.
I wouldn't necessarily say that we would have to all be under like one government or something. But I
Right.
think that what it is that where each government and each country respects each other and we as humans live and breathe collaboration and trade with each other where there's always benefits,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Where we allow other people to come and learn our culture and we send people to learn other people's culture and knowledge and exchange information and exchange resources for betterment of society, not for
Awesome.
any gain, right?
Yeah.
And I think even at that point, even if hypothetically if this was the case, there will be still gain, there's still money to be made,
Of
right?
course.
And
Yes.
yeah, this is just for the people, for the ones
Yes.
who are worried about the profit, right?
Yes.
Because there's always profit and collaboration. And the more that you work together, the more that you're gonna make, and the more that we're gonna be capable. If one man can build rockets and bring them down without being destroyed, imagine if we can all collaborate, what we'll be able to do.
Yes. Oh, so beautifully said. So, and there's no reason why we can't. We at
Yeah,
this point are I think we're all ready for it. And I love that you just ended on that. That was one of the most beautiful things I think I've heard in a long time. So thank you. It's
thank you.
like you are so uplifting, and this is what humanity needs is to feel uplifted and to know that this time can be the greatest time, that we can be moving forward into something that we can't even imagine how wonderful it can be when we all create it together. So I just
For
want to
sure.
thank you for being my guest. You are the
I
first
appreciate
male
it.
guest, so congratulations.
Thanks, I feel proud.
It's like, I gotta get a man on the show. Yeah, it's been like
Thank
two
you.
months. So thank you so much for your knowledge and your energy and your
Of
passion
course,
and drive. And
of course.
I cannot wait for other folks to be able to hear all that you've said. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. It was definitely an amazing conversation. And yeah, we'll see if we're gonna be able to birth a new Earth.
Oh, we will.
Actually,
We will. I'll have you
yep.
back once it's born. Yeah.
Once it's born, yeah,
Yes, once it's born.
we'll
Thank
do.
you.
All right,
Yeah. All
perfect.
right. Bye.